Okay, so I'm going to bring the Parks and Open Spaces Committee meeting to order. Do I call roll?
No.
You do?
Just courtesy of the floor.
Oh, okay. Is there anybody for courtesy of the floor? Come on up.
Just have some handouts.
Okay, great. Oh, okay, yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Lori Stauffer, and I am the Township Manager for Lower Nazareth Township as of January 15th of this year. I replaced my predecessor, Tim Tenges, who spent about 30 years of his life dedicated to the betterment of Lower Nazareth Township. And probably one of his greatest accomplishments is that he was able to secure a 90-acre property for the township for the purpose of developing a recreational complex at some point in the future. And as we all know, developing recreational complexes is not a cheap ticket item. Most municipalities rely heavily on grant money in order to make that happen. In 2011, Mr. Tenges supervised the application of a grant to Northampton County in the amount of $123,974 for the purpose of constructing 2 soccer fields and a 100 parking space parking lot. Unfortunately, that didn't happen as other projects got in the way, including securing the municipal building that we now sit in from Salvaggio Enterprises and reconstructing that building, which that was done all with in-house resources. And so that took up a lot of manpower and internal, time, which meant that the grant application, the soccer fields, and the parking lot were not completed as of the end of last year. When I started with the township, what I came to find was that unfortunately, because that happened, that the Northampton County reallocated those funds and put them back into the open space fund. I'm here tonight to humbly ask if you would reconsider reinstating those funds to Lower Nazareth Township. What I'm proposing is that if you are willing to do so, I will guarantee you that the project will be completed by the end of this year. Many of you are probably not aware that I worked for 18 years in Lower Mount Bethel Township. I completed a lot of grant applications through Northampton County. As Mr. Cope can tell you, I always completed my projects within a 12 to 18 month range. So at this point, I'm humbly requesting that you consider reinstating the funds to Lower Nazareth to allow us to construct 2 soccer fields and a 100-acre or 100-space parking area. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for bringing this to our attention.
I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I guess, you have a board of supervisors of 5 people.
That is correct.
Mr. Tenges has certainly been there for a very long time. 7 years. I'm just, hard pressed to understand why at some point he didn't approach us, or one of the, I mean, Bob Kusan, he's been there forever. Why at no point within that 7-year period didn't anybody ever appear before us or let us know what was going on? Mr. Cope sends out numerous notices. So I guess, I mean, trust me, I get a lot of late work and requests to accept it. And, you know, it just, to me, this is bad management on the part of the Board of Supervisors and the previous township manager, and a lack of communication. I mean, I don't blame you. I know what you know, you're trying to get whatever funds, you know, can potentially be available. But, you know, I would just like to take this time to call out both Mr. Tenges and the Board of Supervisors over the past 7 years for not communicating with Mr. Cope. I mean, I'm here meeting after meeting, and he tells us, I went to this, I went to... There is no question in my mind that he has done his job. There are people in your township that did not do theirs. And so, as sympathetic as I am to the position that they have put you in, you know, we had a deadline last year, and, you know, we did reallocate those funds towards other projects. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we'd have to hear from him and see if there's money available. And we've recently talked about whether or not we should do a Phase 3. And perhaps this might be something for Phase 3, maybe next year if we choose to implement that. Because we do have time limits, and even the Home Rule Charter does limit how long funds can be set aside for these various projects. So I am sympathetic for the position you're in, trust me. But I think that your supervisors and your previous township manager did a disservice by not communicating with either the council, the previous executive, or Mr. Cope, who is more than competent and is always trying. He is trying to give away money at some point, and he can't get people to even cooperate. And I think that reflects poorly on the supervisors and on the previous township manager. So,
Ms. Stauffer, I realize this is your first year at this position. You're newly appointed, am I
I
correct?
just started January 15th, yes.
So even though these funds have lapsed and gone back into the general fund, or going back into the budget for reallocation, we would have to discuss whether or not you would be able to get those funds this year. And as Mr. Cusick already said, that the budget's already been set. So most likely you're going to have to come back and ask for this money for next year.
Okay.
But just realize that, you know, what Mr. Cusick said was, or Councilman Cusick said, is absolutely correct. And it doesn't reflect necessarily on you or on Brian, but there's nothing I would love more than to put soccer fields in, you know?
Right.
So please come back.
Okay, I certainly will, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else for courtesy of the floor?
I agreed this afternoon. I learned about this morning,
Mm-hmm.
and I agreed this afternoon to put it in the 2018 budget. Okay.
Okay.
So
So-
you'll see it in the 2018 budget, and we'll see if they can get it done.
So how is that, you'll explain the process
Yep,
to us then?
we'll send it to you.
Okay,
Send it to the
great.
budget.
Well then.
well, let me just to follow up then. Where are you transferring that money from and to?
We'll have to look at that as we prepare to put forward the budget. Yeah, in the 2018, but it won't be this year. Won't be this year. I'm sorry, 2019. My apologies. We're in 2019. Yeah. My
Wait a second. Can you clarify that
Yeah,
again?
2019.
So it's going to be in next year's
Right,
budget?
Correct.
Okay. That's what I thought.
You got it. Yep. Right. That's where my confusion came from.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Any other courtesy of the floor? Anybody else would like to speak? Okay. So then, next on our agenda is update on open space and parks and recreation and livable landscape projects. Any updates?
Good afternoon. I'd like to run through a list of projects that are ongoing, accomplishments that we've completed, just to give you all an understanding of what's going on that we're completing right now. So everything that I'm going to be talking about really focuses on these 5 different aspects within Northampton County: tourism and economics, county parks, regional and historic trail corridors, our preserved open space and iconic natural areas, and our views. As you can see here is a map of all county-owned lands within, or preserved open space within the county. The green is public, the tan shades are farmland, and red is an existing trail system. We have about 300 miles of land and water trails within the county itself. So over the years, we've completed different plans, such as the Livable Landscapes Plan. We have a great partnership consortium of Lehigh Valley Greenways that is both public and private groups that come together for conservation and recreation efforts. We completed the Return on Environment study with LVPC and Wildlands Conservancy. Wildlands Conservancy just completed the Lehigh River Management Plan, and our partnerships with Wildlands Conservancy on environmental education and the DNL Heritage Corridor really shine as examples of what we're trying to accomplish here. As you can see, we work with a host of variety of groups here, both funders of grants for our park systems or trails, and other outreach efforts that they all help us with. Here's our examples of different types of programs: our trail systems, our environmental restoration, our environmental education outreach that we've been able to do over the past few years. And through all of that, in 2015, we were awarded the Government Land Conservation Award by the Pennsylvania Land Trust Association. So the Livable Landscapes program really started as the Open Space Initiative back in '07. And since then, we've been funded about $8 million for 75 municipal park projects. We've preserved nearly 3,000 acres of open space and natural areas. And the farmland, that actually needs to be updated. It's about 17,000 acres now, and I forget what the full number. I think it was around 170, 175. And we've been able to secure over $1 million for trail development.
That's awesome.
So here's some of the big projects that we've been able to work on. The Cherry Valley National Wildlife, which was acquisition that we just closed out last year. It was the largest acquisition in Northampton County history. It was about 1,300 acres, so to put it in perspective, it's larger than Jacobsburg State Park. It really runs from Wind Gap out to Bangor along the Kittatinny Ridge, protecting that area and the Appalachian Trail itself. The Imensa Lake Conservation Corridor, there's about 1,200 acres preserved up there through county parks or our partnerships with the Nature Conservancy or other conservancies, making a greenway from Mincy Lake all the way up to the Delaware National Recreation Area, which also touches in that Cherry Valley and the Kittatinny Ridge areas. We've been focused on land protection, but also restoration. Pennsylvania Highlands, Stouts Valley, Williams Township, and Lower Saucon Township. We've done a lot of preservation down there, both farmland and open space. But we've also focused on some watershed areas. The Bushkill, the Ohiotan, and the Monocacy Creek watersheds have both, all three have undergone restoration efforts, either past, present, or in the future. And this little red dot down here is actually a person. You can see how much erosion has happened on a small Ohiotan Creek. So that's actually a project that's going to be started this year. It's about 5 different landowners, and they're going to be doing some restoration efforts on there. And thankfully, those cows weren't there at the time when she was standing there. We're also working heavily within our parks. We've started a grant program process over the past few years to start getting grant funds into the county so we don't have to put all of our money up front. At the Archibald Johnson Conservation Area, we received a $80,000 DEP grant last year. This will do about 1.5 miles of restoration along the Monocacy Creek, and the county put up a $20,000 grant match towards that. We also applied for a cold water fisheries grant. We haven't heard about that one yet, but that would do riparian buffer plantings within the floodplain itself down there, open up some of the plant native trees and shrubs and take some of the invasives out of that area. And as some of you already know, we probably put about about $300,000 to $400,000 worth of municipal park grants for Bethlehem Township to develop their portions of that park itself as well. The Norbath Trail, we just closed out the western portion of the trail itself last year, about 1.5 miles, connecting pretty much Savage Road, where the dog park is, down to the DNL in Northampton Borough. So that is fully open now. We were awarded a $300,000 grant from DCNR last year, so $600,000 worth of improvements will start to go back into the improvement of the Norbath Trails. You can see some of the pathways need a little bit new surfacing, some bridge replacement, safety fencing, and such. And we're also working on connecting fully to the east into Bath. We're securing the easements through Keystone Cement right now. The Gulf Farm Gulf Farm and Plainfield Trail Master Site Development Plan, the RFP should be released within the next week or so to hire a firm to do the Master Site Development Plan of the Gulf Farm located in Plainfield Township. We actually coordinated with Plainfield Township to get a DCNR grant. We got $75,000 for this grant, for this plan, and the portion of the grant is going to go towards looking at buffering the trail itself, also looking at putting in new trailhead amenities, new trailheads itself, and realigning the trail in the northern portion of it. So it ties right in because right here, the trail, the Plainfield Trail literally goes through the park at this area. Wayne Grew Memorial Park, in last year we were awarded some impact fees from Rockefeller and the FedEx development. So there's going to be improvements to the maintenance shed and park facilities there. And we'd look to do an update to the park development plan because the last one that was completed, the original one, is about 10 to 15 years old right now. And there's been major development within the area, new housing, new industrial uses, so on and so forth. A new high school developed right across the park. And Mincy Lake, as I'm sure many of you know, there's plans to do major restoration there. The lake's drained right now. There's a Friends of Mincy Lake that is a nonprofit group that is doing private fundraising right now. Excuse me. And I'm going to have them come in probably in March to talk more about this project, so I don't want to touch too much on it. Also, with the money that was that was rolled over from the Muni Park Grants program last year into the OSI County Parks, we're going to be looking at doing some environmental restoration throughout the county park areas, facility upgrades, forest management plans to make sure our forests within those areas are good. Comprehensive park signage, so when you're driving anywhere and you see a county park, you know it's a county park. And environmental education signage to make sure people know what riparian buffers are. They're not just those grassy areas next to streams that you might get poison from. Just to update and educate the public about what we're doing. As I said about the environmental education programs from Wildlands Conservancy, last year we reached out and we did about 40 different programs, all free, that were funded from our county assistance, and we reached about 500 people through this program. This year they're reaching, and I have it in your packets, you can see all of the programs starting in March, ending in December, all of the programs that are going to be happening. And they're also going to be doing a lot more with Easton School District this year, trying to get some bike and boat programs out to them. Urban youth out in the environment is what they're going to be looking at doing. Terry, you want to pass one around?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So before I move on to the, oh, sorry. Before I go on to the full trail system, is there any questions about any of that stuff there?
Just one on the Wayne Grove Park. We have there were phases, I believe.
Yes.
Is the intention to, when you redo the plan, to come up with a new phasing for additional work? What's the idea and how are you looking at, you looking at chunking it into what could we bid out, or?
The majority of it, the majority of the development plan is good and solid, but with new development patterns that have happened around, or may happen, or will happen, entrances are going to have to be looked at. We're going to have to do some traffic studies to figure out the best in and outs. But phasing, I'm sure, will be a part of that to figure out what's the best way we can help fund these in a reasonable and expectable way to develop the park itself.
Yeah. I think my gripe is always that we always seem to get a lot of nice plans, but then they wind up sitting on a shelf and gaining dust. And we did do the first couple phases of Wayne Grove, and, I understand now, because of what's going on there, it's probably unwise to do anything, but we should have a plan ready to go for additional phases should, this body and this executive have the will to, restart that process, because you're right, the development there continues, and there is a need for recreational opportunity in that area as it continues to grow. Thank you.
Could I ask a question? Sure. The Monocacy Park upgrades, whereabouts are those being made? Right at the park?
So we funded a Monocacy Park upgrade within Ilex Mill Park for the city of Bethlehem. It was a stream restoration project. The plans originally were to take out all of the trees within the floodplain. They kind of nixed that idea, and now they rerouted. They put in-stream habitat, different types of deflectors in. They planted some shrubs and stuff last fall, so it would be really great I want to see what it's going to be looking like in the spring. Just downstream from there was in the industrial quarters just behind Hotel Bethlehem. Remember there was a dam there? That was also funded out of the municipal park program that we helped. That dam was taken out and stream restoration was placed back in there. So that was a lot of that. Also, I think one of the first things that you guys voted on was stormwater update for the Monocacy Creek watershed. So those plans and those recommendations will come into play when we look at the Archibald Johnston especially. They did site assessment all along that. Wildlands Conservancy was actually the one that helped us write the DEP grant. So as they were working with the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission to update that stormwater plan, they were already making recommendations for the Archibald Johnston portion of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else?
So as I mentioned in the beginning, the Northampton County, we have approximately 300 miles of land and water trails within the county here. And there's really 6 major regional trail systems that connect through our county. We're really looking at as being a hub along the east coast of the United States, and specifically within the eastern portion of Pennsylvania. It all leads to local and international exposure, and it does bring an increase in tourism. So I just want to show you the Appalachian Trail, different views from up there. We have the DNL Trail, 160 miles running from Bristol to Wilkes-Barre, literally easton to Walnutport within the county. The September 11th National Memorial Trail is a trail system that overlays existing trails, but it really uses the DNL and the Two Rivers trail system within the county, and then also the Liberty Water Gap Trail. But it's a 2,100-mile trail that really runs from the World Trade Center down to the Pentagon, out to Flight 93, and then back to the World Trade Center itself. The Liberty Water Gap Trail is an existing 150-mile trail that runs from Portland Borough all the way through New Jersey to Staten Island right now. The intent is to connect it up to the National Water Recreation Area. The Delaware River Water Trail. Not many people think of trails as the rivers, but these do exist. Last year on the Sojourn, there were roughly 230 participants that just went in within the Northampton County section in 2 days. And also the Lehigh River Sojourn, 2 days worth, about 175 participants flowed through the Lehigh River within Northampton County's areas. Yeah, that's me. That's my fiance and her daughter. She was 7 at the time, and we got her on the river.
Aw.
Yeah, I think I was more scared at some points, but there was one rapid. Oh no, she loved it. She one of the rides at Disney she compared it to, and like the Pirates was something. I was like, yeah. So I was like, well, when you actually go there, now you can remember the Lehigh River. So we'll see if that happens next time. Nice. The Two Rivers Trail, it was first planned in around '07. There was another plan that identified gaps in '09. It really wanted, what the plan was to do is connect the DNL and Easton up to the AT. And about 75 to 80% of this is complete right now. In 2013, I know past council, you guys have heard me say this many times, but in 2013, LVPC did a study on trail gaps throughout the Lehigh Valley. 6 of the top 10 trail gaps were identified in Northampton County, and I can actually say today we're working on all of them, and that one in Northampton Borough was one of the gaps. That was the first one to be closed out in that whole section. So this is a focus area number 1, Trail Gap 9A. We split this into 2 sections, Gap 9. Gap 9 is really an extension from the Stockertown and Plainfield trails on 191 up to the southern part of Jacobsburg State Park. We're working with PennDOT on this. It's a pilot project. It's brand new. Route 33 is considered a limited access highway. There's no construction allowed whatsoever in that area. So we actually surveyed about 20 to 25 feet from their parcel boundary and moved that limited access highway designated area in so we could snake a trail through PennDOT-owned right-of-way instead of going in and getting easements through several different private owners. And here's a better example of that. We did receive in 2016 $420,000 from TAP funds to do the construction of the trail. So right now, everything's everything's engineered right now. We're just going through the permitting process, and that could take anywhere from 4 to 6 months to get going. We close this gap out. It opens up about approximately 30 miles of trail. 9B, and there's a reason why some of these are still gaps. We have private property issues. There's Norfolk Southern. There's environmental hazards. This is roughly about a 2-mile section, part of the main stem of the Two Rivers, but also the 9/11 National Memorial Trail. And as you can see, some of the environmental hazards, the old bridge that used to be between Stockertown and Tatamy washed away in mid-2000s, never replaced. There's active rail lines. There's flooding, definitely flooding, and sinkhole issues in the area. We're still working on trying to figure out what this is all going to entail to get done, but we haven't started any engineering on this one yet. We've just done some planning.
Brian, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is there still a limited corridor of 25 feet? Is it still in effect for what they're asking for those easements from the PennDOT? Or has that been changed?
I'm not sure. For
When you're putting in the right-of-ways, they were to get close to Spurgeon Wood.
right.
It said something about a 25-foot easement.
They didn't want
Yeah.
any more than 20 to 25 feet off of the parcel boundary because of the slope of the land and getting too close to the cartway of the of 33.
That hasn't changed there.
No, we actually applied for the lease and it's been granted from what I know. I just got a call from someone in Lancaster County that wants to figure out how we're doing this. Sure. Right here in our backyard, Trail Gap 8. This would really connect the Palmer Bike Path to the Silk Mill area, the Carl Sterner Arch Trail. The original intent was to go along an old abandoned rail line that was purchased by Palmer Township and then hit up to Bushkill Drive. We had a meeting with PennDOT. We were going to do some engineering. We did some surveying to figure out if we had enough right-of-way. And then all of a sudden we found out that the pigment plant was going to be sold. So the city's actually been very active on getting an easement along Bushkill Creek where an old sewer line runs, so we don't have to go out on a Bushkill Drive. They're actively working on that right now. Some of the funding that we've put in place to secure for appraisals and title insurance or title research, we're helping and assisting doing that stuff with them to get the appraisal to get an easement done. And this would be a direct connection to Carl Sterner Arch Trail then, making a straight urban connection from downtown Easton up to the Palmer Bike Path.
Tara, could I ask a question?
Yes.
I stepped out of line the first time. Is that gonna be, are you going to deal with any of that, or is that gonna be dealt with?
No, actually, the area that they're looking at is all macadamed already, so it would just kind of be put on top. It's in between any of the buildings and the creek. We're not going actually into the, no. We're literally on the banks of the creek. It would be about a 10 to 15-foot swath of land from the creek bank that we're looking to get. That's a whole host of, yeah, I don't want to get into that. Trail Gap 10 is connecting the Bushkill Trail up to the Appalachian Trail. And this really focuses in on our Northern Tier Trail that I'll talk about a little bit about in a few minutes. But really it's getting, the Bushkill Trail runs from the northern portion of Jacobsburg up to 512 right now. There's a trailhead there. Bushkill Township's been aggressively purchasing land within this area. There's a new industrial or development that's going to happen in there. They've made sure that the trail will be put in that industrial area to get up to 512 and then have a safe crossing where that St. Luke's place is right there.
Can I ask you a question about
Sure.
that? So what impact does that acquisition of land for development pose on your project? Anything?
No, it
Besides-
actually helps us out.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, because just below there is what we call the ballast tract. We help preserve that with Bushkill Township. And just below that, they've also had an easement that connects to the existing trail into the ballast tract. And this new development will have it, is just adjacent to it. So when they put the industrial building in, the trail will actually be built as part of the development of the site.
So it's an industrial development?
Yeah, it's a warehouse going in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. As I mentioned, a lot of these gaps are gaps for reasons. We have Norfolk Southern property acquisition that we've been trying to do for some time. I think it's going good that we actually have some conversation now with their real estate department on the 9A project. It was kind of, let's get this in the door and see how we can move forward on it. We have the 9B. Also, the South Bethlehem Greenway is a major connection from pretty much Salcombe Park to Hellertown. There's a few of these that we're looking at. Wildlands Conservancy's really they're stepping up and being the lead as the Lehigh Valley representative to talk to Norfolk Southern. So we are moving forward on those things. The Northern Tier Trail, we got $30,000 to do a planning study from DCNR. We're about 3/4 of the way done right now. But what this really does is connect east to west, a trail system connecting Portland, the Delaware River, the Liberty Water Gap Trail, to Walnutport, the Lehigh River, and the D&L Trail, and connecting these north to south trails that we have, such as the Plainfield, the Two Rivers, the D&L in that section, and bringing a diverse economic opportunity for our historic downtowns in the Slate Belt, even smaller ones like Chapman, but bringing recreation tourism into those areas by building this trail system through that area. Okay.
So are you updating us on Northern Trail right
No,
now?
I was
Because
actually
that's
going to
item
go a
number
little bit more,
4.
but it's frozen right now, so
Okay.
I can talk about it a little bit more.
Only because, well, that's number 4 on our agenda.
Yeah.
anyway.
So, as this thing unfreezes, we had our last steering committee. We had some, and I actually have it up here, we had some branding done for logos and such. We have the corridor that is pretty much planned out now, and we have some tiered corridor things that we think we can move forward with for grants for construction. One of the first ones would be Mincy Lake to Portland, and then another section would be connecting Wind Gap Borough Park to Weona Park, and the northern, or the Plainfield Recreation Trail, all in there. Those are two of the low-hanging fruits that we see that we can move forward on. We will have another public meeting. We just haven't figured out that date yet. But I don't know what happened to this thing.
Control Alt Delete, and then can you go
Yeah.
into the task manager?
Oh, see now what happens.
For 30 seconds, yeah.
You can ask Mr. Heller to act it out.
Yeah, Gordy.
Okay, this one over here and this one here.
Okay, I'm not sure now.
It's okay.
So, is there any other questions about that stuff? I wanted to talk a little bit about our Scenic Wild Delaware River geotourism program.
Can I ask?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I have two questions. I apologize for coming a little late. I know you talked about, I was told you gave a general review of Mincy Lake and whatnot. Where are we at on Mincy Lake? What stage are we at right now? As far as, this drainage building?
Okay, we're waiting for the Fish and Boat Commission to award the bids on the dam. They keep telling us, first it was late winter, now it's early spring. So we would assume that they would probably be awarded sometime over the summer, construction in the fall, probably construction by their contractor through next year and probably into the following year, to be realistic.
40 years?
It's a lot of water.
Contractor in place before they drained it?
No, they did not, because they had to give the contractors the opportunity to see what the base looked like and do some engineering verification to make sure that the geology was correct and it could still hold the dam in place and so forth and so on. Part of the permitting process, we've all been there. The Fish Commission, of course, is basically broke. They get their revenue and they take care of the lake itself, and they've been doing some minor repairs on the dam. The dam is not and was not in any danger of collapse or failure. What it doesn't do is meet the current engineering specifications. So it's functionally obsolete. PennDOT likes to use that a lot. So they're going to do the dam, they're going to refill it, and they're basically going to be out of town. So it's going to be up to the Friends of Lake Mincy, and this concept's been used at Leaser Lake in Lehigh County and a few others in the Commonwealth, to where you have a private group along with your municipal organizations, county council, to raise money and sort of pull it in more as part of our park system. We currently have I refer to as the light maintenance agreement, which expired, and then you folks extended it to 2020 so they could get through the situation with the dam. They have informed us that they're going to build the dam, they're going to continue to monitor the habitat and the water, and the rest is going to be up to us. We're going to continue to have a facility up there. Most of the facility was built between 70 and 75. My crew has reconstructed the pit toilets a couple of times. They're beyond rehabilitation anymore. We're going to need some kind of a new facility. The bases of the parking lots have failed, partially because they were under constructed back then, but we're going to need new parking lots in the same area, and other amenities to meet the ADA requirements and things of that nature. So we're hoping to bring in a whole host of outside revenue to you folks to show you what we've done. And a lot of credit goes to Jim Wilson, who is not here, but he'll be doing the presentation when we come in to do the lake itself and the improvements in the Friends of Mincy Lake. So there's a lot more to come.
Can I follow up?
Sure.
First of all, let me just say, I know Mr. Kraft has termed a project that's being talked about, the Bugnarium. But I would say if you want to see nature, and I'm just going to say, I took my son out on the lake when he was young to go fishing. I've walked the trail where you bumped into
It is
there.
beautiful.
I've walked that many times, and I went to archery events, numerous archery events in the big field.
Boy Scouts there.
It's a fantastic space. We talk about the slate belt and what we want to do. I think, not because of anybody's fault, I think it's underutilized because people just don't know about it, but if and when we ever get to the point where the lake, then the lake was getting kind of sketchy, so I can see why it needed to be taken care of, but that's a fantastic area up there, and I would just recommend to anyone, even without the lake, if you get a chance to go up, check it out. I really enjoyed going up there.
If if I may, perfect segue. Usually when we have a
Thank you.
turnover in council, we send out a form with all the county parks listed and times that you'd be available, and we get a van. And we take you around to see some of the areas of the parks that you normally don't see when you're going by at 40 to 60 miles an hour. So that'll be coming in the next couple of weeks.
Oh,
And,
great.
we can do it Saturday morning, we can do it in the afternoon.
Road trip.
We can do it during the day. And if there is something that is not on that list that you want to go see that maybe Brian's talked about here today, make a note, we'll get you there.
I think I went on a trip, once you were first in, I went on one of your
Yes.
van trips.
Yes, you did.
More parks now, right?
A van. That's funny.
I'm not-
All right, great. One more,
Just
yeah,
one
sure.
more. Open space. And a question I have is, I know we go for parks and open space and grass, but trees, you know, I've had some conversations with folks, and, you know, when I was young, Moore Township had a lot of trees, people don't believe that. But when we talk about parks and open space, do we ever consider letting it go back as opposed to just green trees? Good old breathing, great trees, park of trees.
If I may, part of the last section out at Wayne Grove had 4 reforestation areas, which
Oh.
have been heavily
I was gonna say.
replanted. Over this winter, we took the deer fence out because it was starting to
Yeah.
break down from the ultraviolet rays. So yes, that formerly being corn and soybean fields was reforested.
So is that something we think of throughout the
Reforestation.
county, if things come up, maybe we think about?
It's certainly an eligible
preserving some
activity under
trees.
the open space program,
Yeah.
and we certainly encourage it, although it's not mandated by
Right.
any of our programs.
All right, that's all, I just was, wanted to throw that out, thank you.
Anybody else want to throw anything out?
Tree City, Bethlehem with me, so we're all.
Tree City.
That's a big thing, and I agree with Ron.
Hey,
about the-
reforestation is important. You got to sequester the carbon, you know? So, is your PowerPoint working
Yeah,
yet?
I think it's done.
We really tried to buy you a lot of time.
I know.
I'm just saying.
I know. Yeah, it's
Can you
done.
wing it? Do you,
Yeah,
what else
I
do you
can,
have?
I can hit on a couple points, just
Okay.
to update you on some things. So,
Okay.
the Scenic Wild Delaware Geotourism Program, I'm not sure how many people or how many of you actually know about it. It was first launched about 2 years ago. It's one of 24, 25 internationally tied to National Geographic, and we were able to get this program here within Northampton County. So it runs from Easton up to Hancock, New York. It's about a 150-mile stretch of the Delaware River, and it goes out about a half hour's drive from the river itself. We work in 3 different states, 9 different counties, and it's bringing tourism to the area through outdoor recreation, small businesses, small events, and just a local flavor. Having people come and enjoy why we live here is the main concept of it. Since then, we've held a media blitz out in New York City at the National Parks Conservation Association's office, and the next day, up on Yahoo's website was America's Next Destination, Scenic Wild Delaware River. We work with Discover Lehigh Valley, Pocono Mountains Visitor Bureau, Tri-State Chamber, all of the DMOs in this area to help promote the Scenic Wild Delaware River geotourism area. We've done different conferences. Let's see. They've gone to, all of these DMOs have been to about 15 different conference or jamborees throughout, pretty much throughout eastern the United States just this past year. So as they go out and they talk about the Pocono Mountains or they talk about the Lehigh Valley, they're also branding this area for the Scenic Wild Delaware River. In part of that, we've been able to develop a committee group focused around sustainable design, sustainable practices, environmental practices. So we're pushing different projects together. We have a what we're calling a monarch butterfly. It's just kind of something to get a quick hit on. But it's a lot of restoration, a lot of native plant restoration along our streams, our riparian buffers, meadow restoration in areas. So working literally across the river with Warren County all the way up to Hancock, New York, Sussex County and such, we're all working together on doing environmental projects that make the area better and to bring in tourism through that area. We will have our biannual meeting on March 14th this year down here at Nurture Nature Center. You're more than welcome to come. I can send a reminder out to everyone about it. It starts at 10 o'clock and it'll go till about 4. So that's the quick gist of all of that. We held our first geotourism conference actually last fall, and we had about 180 people show up. Speaking of conferences, some upcoming events, we will be hosting the Eastern Pennsylvania Trails and Greenways Conference again at ArtsQuest. It'll be October 1st and 2nd. We're doing it those 2 dates because DCNR is going to be championing October as Trails Month. So what a great way to kick off Trails Month. We're hoping to have Secretary Dunn come in and be the keynote speaker in the morning. The Sunday before the actual conference starts, we're looking at doing guided hikes. We already have about 50 places for a bike and boat program that will go down the Delaware River and ride back up the DNL. But we'd like to do guided hikes up at Mincy, out at Trexler, and highlight the different natural areas of both counties as we host this event. Let's see, some other upcoming events. April 21st through the 23rd, the September 11th National Memorial Trail Ride. They're actually riding the whole 2100. There's about 8 of them that are actually doing the whole thing. So they'll be coming through the Lehigh Valley on the 21st, sleeping overnight at the 22nd in Easton somewhere, and then heading up over the ridge out through Delaware Water Gap and out through Portland and sleeping somewhere in Jersey the next day. So I'm coordinating with the DNL and some other folks to put on a good presentation for the trail riders, to get some plaques up or signage about the northern or the September 11th trail, and to have some press events along the way as they come running through. June 1st through the 3rd is the Step Outdoors Lehigh Valley. That's down at ArtsQuest. That's run by ArtsQuest. It's a great thing, especially with the dock dogs down there. If you've never seen it, I'd suggest going. Brand new, June 10th through the 14th, the Rails Trails Conservancy is going to be doing a sojourn on the DNL, so not a floating sojourn. It's actually a bike riding sojourn. So DNL is helping Rails Trails Conservancy organize that whole event. June 23rd through the 25th, actually June 16th through the 23rd, is the Delaware River Sojourn, and once again it'll come through Northampton County. And the 23rd through the 25th of June is the Lehigh River Sojourn. They always kind of almost overlap. They're right in back-to-back of each other. And then, of course, we have the Eastern PA Trails and Greenways Summit, October 1st and 2nd. So I think that was kind of the last of my presentation.
That was it? All right.
Yeah, I had more better pictures.
Yeah, more.
Yeah, better pictures.
All right.
But
I think that was sufficient. I think that was great. And I think that what you're doing with the trail system is awesome. When I went to the Northern Tier meeting that we were at, I was really impressed with all the connections that were being made and the connection to the economic development and for small businesses in the Slate Belt and the surrounding areas that were going to benefit from that ecotourism that's coming in, and especially that National Geographic program bringing like a huge spotlight onto this area. So great job. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, last year during the budget process, we transferred $250,000 into the livable landscapes, and at the time, I don't think you had a specific thought. You gave us some ideas. Have you been able to solidify, where you would have been intending to spend that fund?
I haven't been able to solidify yet. I've had some discussions with the administration. We'll probably still be looking at doing some of the environmental service assistance grants that put out for land restoration and protection, but some of those funds can also go for like these types of programs, specifically some of the ones that we did last year for signage programs. I had a brief meeting with the new DCD director. We're looking at maybe we can combine funds to do some programs through that. So there's still some moving parts. It was a little bit different from our thought with the last administration, and it's still new with this one, so we're still working on it.
Yeah, and then the other piece of it was municipal parks. We ended Phase 2. Can you give us an update as to how you've been reaching out to municipalities? I know that the weather right now, they probably haven't started much except for maybe engineering. Can you give us some updates as to your outreach and how you're working with the townships to make sure that they spend the money on a timely basis.
Sure. So I get biannual updates from them, and if I don't, I'm on the phone calling them. I would get to really reach out to a lot of the municipalities, so I'm talk with them, if not weekly, at least bi-weekly. Yeah, the weather's kind of put a hold on construction. A lot of them have construction plans to start this year. Some of them were upheld because of one or two possibly didn't get a grant that they were looking for as matching funds. They're going to be reapplying this year for those as well. So I don't see really any unexpected delays. I think the ones that we've put out, they've been very strict, straightforward. This is what we want to do. And we even had some that came in that were already done, and they got reimbursed literally almost the next day. So,
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
sure.
Thank you, Brian. All right, moving on. The discussion regarding the amendment of resolution number 51-2014.
I can briefly go over it. So this was part of the municipal grant program. This was before we amended some of the text as under the now therefore. So the ones that came in after, I believe it was 2015 we started it, where it was an up to amount. This one gave specific numbers. So this project came in under budget. We just have to amend those to do what they spent, and it's at the same percentage rate. Just so.
Okay, great. So, do we have to read this? No, we're done. Okay.
No, I'll
Okay,
make
that's
a,
tonight. Okay, great. So those.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval by full council tonight.
Okay, great. And we've already had the update to the Northern Trail. Thank you,
Sure.
Brian. And so, is there any other business?
Just want to say it's good to see Mr. Heller back here. I haven't seen him in a while.
It's nice to be here. Try to get you guys out in the park. Thank you.
Okay. So for the sake of Ken Kraft, who
What are you
keeps
talking
telling me
about?
about time,
I'm not telling you about time.
do we have to make a motion to adjourn? All right, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you. That is overrated. Really? Ken Kraft is